But that was actually a pretty big deal getting that.
Shout out to Kevin.
Yeah,
Woo woo.
yeah, it was. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Channel Surfing. This one we're going to do a walkthrough of stuff we've changed on the boat. Upgrades, add-ons, warranty work, to the boat. We bought the boat, took delivery of it in middle of June of 2020, which is 10, 11 months ago. So we'll start with, from the front, work our way back. So one of the first things we did was we upgraded the anchor, right, to a Rockna 10, which is a 22-pound anchor. It's a drop-in replacement on the 27-footer. The one little thing we noticed was it was really close. We got one little dimple on the front from the sharp point of the Rockna, which is why the Rockna grabs in the bottom of the ground so good. So we bought an anchor, a Mantis anchor guard, which is this guy to keep that tip from getting close. The other thing is the bail doesn't work anymore when you have the Rockna on, just because of the shape of the Rockna. No big deal there. We just came in and just put a little clip on it so that if the anchor accidentally was to fall, it wouldn't go very far. And you also seize the anchor shackle with lock wire. In addition to that, we've gone through and we've marked our anchor line. So the boat comes with 50 foot of chain and 200 foot of 8-plight rode. So the anchor we just marked at the halfway point, right? So 25 foot out of 50. For the 200 foot of anchor rode, we mark that every 30 foot, which is every 5 fathoms. So we just have a number on there that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as it goes to the marking, and then we can quickly do the math to know how much anchor line we have out. With that, let's go walk down to the rest of the boat and look at the other stuff. All right, so one of the other upgrades we did was we upgraded the shore power connection to a smart plug. All right, it's a pretty simple upgrade. Let me take this off just so you guys can see it. So this is the shore power connection that we replaced. Mounts in, so the plug that comes with it is a normal L630 twist lock. So you got to put it in and twist it, and then you have to hold it twisted and hit the collar. Otherwise, it doesn't make a good connection. You'll get heat buildup. Potentially, fires can happen. This makes it much easier to plug. It only fits one way. There's no twisting on it. It's a lot more surface contact for all the plugs, so a lot less heat's generated. And it just like that. You hear it click in place. It's not coming out, and then you push the 2 buttons in, pull it out, and then we got this just to protect it. Not to protect it this way. So the other upgrade we did, which was major, was the house battery bank, right? And there was actually a bunch of little things that all went in on the electrical stuff. So we put a battery monitor in, we upgraded to 3 Firefly batteries, we relocated the house battery bank, we put in 3 Victron voltage and temperature sensors. We also added a Victron 25 amp battery charger, and we upgraded the solar controller to a Victron MPPT 100/30 controller. So let's go and take a look at what all of that is together. So on the factory configuration, there would be 3 batteries. This would be the first one, and then there was 2 more hidden underneath there, hard to get to. Those 2 batteries have been moved to the center cockpit. This is actually the thruster battery, moved from the forward position to the most stern position. This is the Victron battery voltage and temperature sensor. These things sell for about $35. Just put them on the positive and negative of the battery bank, and now on my phone I can pull up and know what the voltage and temperature is of the battery. Temperature is not as important to me right now on the batteries, other than it lets me know how cold the compartments are. Because I'm not using the temperature for any form of charging, but having the voltage of what the battery, for the thruster battery, the voltage of the engine battery, and the voltage of the house battery, just being able to look at on my phone without having to turn on the Garmin or run anything in the boat is a nice to have. In addition, down here, this is the 25 amp Victron battery charger that we added. Adding the third Firefly battery meant I would now exceed the minimum standards for enough current to replenish those batteries when needed. So it was easier just to add an extra battery charger for that. And then this is the shunt for the battery monitor. This is actually where the magic happens. All the return for the house bank has to go through this device for it to be able to measure how much charge is left in the batteries based on how many amp hours. Alright, for the battery charger, where did I plug it in for the AC side? Well, the grill has an outlet on the stern of the boat, so we just plugged it into the AC outlet. It was easy. Easy to get to, easy to do, although there is a caveat to that. And that caveat is because that outlet was put in for the electric grill usually sits right here. We don't have the grill in. We don't ever have it in here unless we're actually using it. But let's say you had the grill there and you were using it and it was hot and you left it on, and then you shut this lid, you would catch the boat on fire. So as a safety mechanism, there's a safety switch right here. So when the lid is closed, this switch is depressed and that disconnects the outlet. So obviously I have to override that. I don't have the grill in, so I just put a little spacer in there just to pop that side up, and that way that outlet works. I also use that outlet for the Paley space heater in the winter time to help keep the underneath from freezing. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So looking down here, here's the 3 Firefly batteries. All right, all hooked up in parallel. They're 116 amp hours a piece, so that's 340 amp hours total, which gives me about 215 usable amp hours. The Paley space heater, we put all the way the front mounted there, and that, like I said, that plugs in, and the outlet is right up there that we're talking about that the grill would normally plug into. And here's another one of the voltage monitors. All this looks at is the voltage and the temperature. It doesn't check amps or anything like that. It's just a straight up voltage reading of the batteries. But you know, the one we showed you on the thruster is the one in the house, and the engine battery in the back corner also has one. And over here in the starboard lazarette, down here is the MPPT 100/30 Victron solar charger controller. That replaced the Morningstar Duo controller that was a PWM style that came with the boat. Big difference is the Victron will handle up to 100 volts coming down from the panel, and it'll put out up to 30 amps into the battery. When we do our solar panel upgrade, we're going to go with a pair of panels. I'm going to exceed the 12 volts that is up there currently, so I decided to replace the controller first before I did the panels. It only makes sense that way. And then this right here is the battery voltage sensor, you know, for the engine battery. So I'm using my tablet because it's a little bit bigger. This also works on my phone. It's just Bluetooth that streams to the all the Victron devices. So I can click the BMV and it'll Bluetooth connect to the battery monitor. I currently have us disconnected from shore power just so I can see some interesting numbers. So it's showing that we're consuming 19 watts right now. I've got the microwave and the inverter running. You know, we've consumed 1 amp hour. Currently at 1.5 amps is what the boat's drawing. Voltage is at 12.9. If I want to say, what's the voltage of the battery thruster? It's 12.92 currently. Or I can say, let's look at the engine battery. 12.92 volts. Having the battery charger go just to the house when the voltage goes above, I want to say it's above 12.8, 13 something volts, then the ACRs will close and allow the current to traverse from the house bank to the engine bank into the thruster bank. And then looking at the solar panel, this is the MPPT solar controller, showing what the voltage is, what the current is, how many watts it's creating. So it's actually making 4 watts right now, which is pretty impressive because we're actually undercover. So
2 watts.
So it's the evening sun hitting it at an angle.
1 watt.
Yeah, usually it's zero. It's zero because we're in a covered slip. So, but out on the water, this will register, 20 watts, 80 watts, 100 watts, whatever. But very convenient to have all the instrumentation or the battery available on your phone just to be able to look it up. There's also a gauge. Did I mention the gauge? So we have a gauge right here. That's the Victron battery monitor. And you can configure what it displays. Usually the less things it displays, the better. So I've got it at 99.8% is where our batteries are at. It's looking at 240 hours is what it thinks we would have on runtime with what we're currently using. And the voltage is at 12.87 currently.
The refrigerators must be off.
Yeah, and it's using, it's a negative number, which means you're consuming amps. If I had the engine or shore power running, that would be a positive number. But you can just cycle through this real quickly just to get a high level of, for everybody in the boat to know what the capacity is left from the batteries. So up around the helm, we did several additions. So one was we added a GXM 54 Garmin antenna, which actually runs all the way up to the top of the mast. I'll put a picture there of what that looks like. And that's so that I can get weather, and it also allows you to get XM radio. So we did the XM radio through that antenna for a period of time. The disadvantage to that setup is in order to listen to XM radio from the GXM 54 antenna, it comes down from the antenna, runs through the boat, comes to the back of the Garmin unit, and there's a little box with an auxiliary output, so that auxiliary goes to the Fusion radio. So you don't set the Fusion radio to satellite XM, you set it to auxiliary, and it's taking the input from the chart plotter who's getting it from the XM antenna, which means the chart plotter's got to be on all the time to listen to XM radio. At Anchor, that is really expensive electrically. The chart plotter is going to pull 25 watts all the time. All right, it'd be nice to just shut that off and still have the radio going. So we played with that for a bit and decided that we'd rather have XM radio work independently of the chart plotter. So we just went and bought the XM antenna. All that needs to be done to add XM radio to the Fusion, we've got the it's the UD755 Fusion radio that came with the boat, is you need an antenna. It's like $75 and it plugs right into the back. Challenge is, where do you mount the antenna? We mounted the antenna, technically it's about right here on the underside pointing up. We get great signal and stuff with it. I didn't have to run any extra cables. It was probably one of the easiest installs and upgrades that we did to the boat.
Well, you just unscrew that right there.
Yep. You could actually do it all. You could do that all the way in the back, but you take these screws out, this whole piece comes out, and you have easy access in the back. And we'll post a picture of where the antenna looks like in the back corner. In addition, in that back corner, we also added AIS to the boat. Oh, before I forget, on the XM stuff, you can still operate the XM radio from the chart plotter if the chart plotter is on. But now, since the XM radio antenna goes right to the Fusion, I can turn the chart plotter off and it's all independent, and it only pulls like 6-7 watts. It goes into XM radio when we're at anchor, which is nice. And also, I'm no longer using the aux port, right? So it actually is satellite XM on the radio. So the radio will show me what station I'm on. I can change stations. There's a Bluetooth app on my phone I can use to connect to the Fusion. We sit back in the cockpit and change the station, pick the satellite radios, channels that I want to listen to. So for AIS, we put the Vesper 8000 in the back corner as well. The reason we did the Vesper 8000 was it has wireless that I can have up to 5 people connect to it. So this way, other people in the boat can actually connect to the Vesper. There's an app that it has, or you can have it hooked with Navionics, and therefore other people in the boat can see Navionics where we're at, and then they can see the AIS targets all around us as well. It also has an anchor alarm built into it, and because it's all standalone, it doesn't. I can have the chart plotter off, and the AIS is still functioning through my phone on an app or my tablet. To communicate with it. The anchor alarm is actually really nice, built into the Vesper. Usually I use an app on my phone for an anchor alarm, but the problem with that is I always forget to shut it off. We get in the dinghy and we head to shore, and about 100 yards away from the boat, my pocket starts alarming. So I'd much rather have the anchor alarm with the boat, but using the anchor alarm of the Garmin, here and again, it's going to draw 25-30 watts. That's really expensive. AIS draws like 4 watts to be on all the time. So it's just a convenience that way. And for the AIS antenna, right, so the Vesper came with a big bulky external antenna to be routed up, and I don't want to drill any more holes than I don't have to. So I played with where the antenna could actually go, and what I found was if I bought one of those little slimline antennas, I just mounted it right on top of the Vesper, hidden right back here, and it gets great GPS coverage, going right out through the fiberglass, because the antenna for the Vesper is probably about right here on the underside. I'll post a picture of what that looks like on the inside so you can see where the 2 antennas are. But that's worked out really well. The antenna splitter for the AIS, Vesper has a amplified splitter that actually sits right below it under here. So the antenna comes down over there, runs down the back, runs back over here and hits the splitter, and then there's a VHF cable that goes from that to AIS, and then there's a cable that goes from that to the VHF radio. And that way both the VHF and the AIS are sharing the same antenna that I've always had. Again, it was a very easy install. I didn't have to drill any holes, or anything like that to mount it. Pretty straightforward. And then electrical for the Vesper. Let's go look what I did there. So back up in here, if we look behind the helm, so we've got right here, this is the little unit, the XM radio antenna. And then the antenna just mounts right up here in the back corner. Obviously AIS needed another NEMA connection. It mounts right over here, so it was one extra T I had to add. For the AIS, I needed 2 things of power, one for the splitter and one for the AIS unit. So I got power that comes in, negative goes out to the boat, and then the terminal strip, I've got AIS and I've got the splitter, both is sharing power off the one lead, sharing the negative. The other wires in the middle, I haven't finished hooking these up. These are actually for a external speaker and an external switch that you can, like if the alarm's going off, you hit the button to mute the alarm. I'm going to add those, and then I'm going to have to drill a hole, and I haven't decided where I want the hole yet. But this way, once I'm ready to do it, I just run the 4 wires in, screw them to the terminal strips, and I'm done. Right, and then I just use the 2 amp fuse that comes off to power the AIS and the splitter. All right. So other thing we did in the summertime, it gets really hot. Trying to provide some shade in here. This was actually LaZina's idea. So on these screens, just went and hooked some regular placemats. Nothing too fancy. Cut the corners a little bit so that it would fit inside the screen, and it makes for really good shade.
It also makes it darker at night when you're trying to sleep, or I guess more in the morning when you're not wanting to wake up at 5 o'clock when you're trying to sleep.
When you're trying to sleep in.
Doesn't wake the dogs up.
Right. And the other thing is LaZina made these little things just out of some egg carton material to stuff right there.
Which helps. I'm telling you. 5 o'clock in the morning. Everything's bright. Anything you can do to make it a little bit darker.
So we upgraded our cabin heater to this. It's quite a bit more expensive. The other one ran me up a really big electric bill because the thermostat on it wasn't very precise, so I ended up running all the time, keeping the cabin like 80 degrees when I don't need it to be 80 degrees. This one actually does pretty good. I want to say it was about $75-80. It's actually got a setting on it that's, you know, says don't freeze. You know, generally I keep it above that, but I'll just set it, you know, to try and keep the cabin about 45, 50 degrees. It helps with the dehumidifier as well.
In case you're wondering, that's the brand name.
Yeah. And that's actually worked really well for us. And then this dehumidifier has actually worked really good for us too. Dehumidifiers don't work when it's super cold, so you need to have some heat. It's actually a heating element in this, and both of them run off of AC power, so they're only ran when we're connected to shore power. But then when we're not on the boat, we keep this running just to keep the moisture down so we don't get mildew and stuff.
It will stop if it fills, so it doesn't overflow all over your boat.
Yeah. And depending, you know, I mean, the level will vary. We've often thought it would just drill a hole in here, run some rubber tubing into the sink so it overflowed. It could do that, and then you could run it indefinitely.
But we're down at the boat pretty often. We're only 10 minutes away.
Yeah. So the boat does come with port and starboard screens, right, that then fit right here. These are great to keep the bugs out and stuff, right?
You also get shading, as you can see the difference between that and that.
Yeah. But the challenge becomes, what do you do? Where do you put them? Right, so when we first got the boat, we were throwing these all over. They were getting bent on and stuff. The same thing with the screens on the top. What do we do with those when we have them out? Because when you're underway in the summertime, you're not going to have the screens here because you're opening and closing the hatches all the time, you know, just to keep it comfortable. So that's why we put the magazine rack down here. We installed this, which was primarily, we use it for obviously other things, but primarily that's where the screens would go. But the bigger screens, we came down and just stuck some Velcro right on the top.
Just the fuzzy side, because the others already has the...
Yeah, because the screen already has it. And now, they are out of sight, out of mind, not getting stepped on, not getting crushed. Yep. Easy to find. And that concludes our upgrades of what we've done in the last 10 months. So warranty work. What was our experience with fit finish the boat? Anything we had to have the factory come back and fix? It was a couple of things. The first one we got hit with was the ski pole. You're supposed to be able to push this in, hit the little lever, and the ski pole comes up. And it was stiff, and it just got worse over time. We weren't able to do it, so they ended up replacing the ski pole. So that's how the ski pole is supposed to go up or down. We use the ski pole for the T-bar to hold our dinghy to go around. The other warranty we had that was quite a bit more involved was back over here. If you look down, there's this horizontal tie bar. The original bar that came with the boat, we'll put a picture up of it, was bent in a special way so that this bar doesn't come in contact with this, and depending where I steered, they would actually touch, and then it would pop the throttle cable off, and then I couldn't use the kicker.
I think that bar rotated.
Yeah, it did rotate a little bit, but even then there was a spot on when you turn hard to one side that it would actually touch. So they came out and replaced it with it's a different design they have where they just do it straight across. That way there's really no chance of the two touching anymore. Much better to work with. That was actually a pretty big deal getting that.
Shout out to Kevin.
Yeah, yeah, it was a pretty big deal getting that fixed for us. Yeah, that was the only two things we called the factory on. A couple of little things in the boat we just fixed ourselves, you know. Yeah, the bilge pump in the front. The bilge pumps actually have a piece of material that's glued to the hull, and then they screw the bilge pump to that, and that actually popped off. We just re-glued it and stuck it back down.
And it hasn't...
Yeah, it's no big deal.
Apart since.
And that's been it. So other than that, we've been actually really happy. Really fortunate with the boat. No real major issues. Actually, I guess the trim cylinders, right? And that was one of our videos when channel surfing broke. And that turned out to be, you know, we thought the trim wouldn't go down on the boat, on the engine, right? So it sounded like the power trim tilt unit. Yamaha dealer approved warranty repair for it. And then, you know, just getting ready to order parts, they were like, "Hey, did you put grease in the end of the tips?" And that solved the whole problem.
We have a video for that. I'll link it right here.
Yeah. So so I thought it'd be a warranty work, and instead it was really just add some grease. So, simple fix like that.
I like simple fixes like that.
Mm-hmm. So what's planned next for upgrades? So on the short list for upgrades, the solar panel is coming up. We're We've still got the factory 140 watt up there, which does pretty good. I've seen as high as 90 watts here during the winter time going out, which is pretty good. But we recognize that's not going to be enough for our electrical needs, so we're going to be putting a pair of 200 watt panels above. That'll happen here in the next month or two.
And a shelf.
And in the cockpit storage where I put the 3 batteries, I'm going to build a shelf to go under there and then make some storage areas and stuff out of that. So we can put like some totes and stuff and make better use of the space down there for dry stores and spare parts and stuff. It's just a little bit too close. There's the birds. So, and then you go turn on the power both sides. Birds are crazy.
I don't know why there's a lot. Oh, they're right there.
Oh yeah, there they are. Yeah, you recording?
Yep.
Alright, hope you can hear me over the sound of the birds. So probably the biggest upgrade we did. And other than that, thanks for watching, and please be sure to leave your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications.
And like the video.
And like the video.
Stay tuned for more channel surfing.